Hi everyone, this is Peter here, just doing a hopefully reasonably quick flipped collaborate for assignment 3. So I am going to click into our unit, go into assignments, and assignment 3 is 2 lesson plans. Now it is due at 5 p.m. on Monday the 2nd of October, week 12, our last week of the unit, so it's pretty exciting. You're almost all there. And for this one, the word limit is 2,000 plus minus 10% overall, and it's weighted at 30%. So let's have a look at the assignment overview. So for this assignment, you're required to complete 2 lesson plans. And I know you did learning plans for discovering science. These are slightly different, more standalone. That was a little bit more looking at almost like a unit of work. You have to select 2 lesson plans from 2 of the 4 science understanding substrands which you're looking at in the learning modules at the moment. And you also looked at these in the Discovering Science unit, so hopefully you'll be becoming more familiar with them. So you're required to complete the lesson plans according to fixed constraints, and these are evident in the actual templates that you're provided with. You'll be provided with some basic background information about the curriculum content that has to be covered and the class context that you have to take into consideration in your plans. Now, the purpose of this assessment is to provide you with a realistic example of planning a lesson, which is our bread and butter as teachers. And I like this assignment because it's really practical, and hopefully you'll be able to use it, if not on any pracs, if you've got any left this year, maybe in the future. Teachers love it when you do a science lesson in your classroom on the pracs. So your assignment will consist of the following 2 sections. Number 1, the creation of 2 engaging and pedagogically relevant lesson plans. The next part is accompanying your lesson. You need to provide an evaluation and justification of your teaching choices. You need to demonstrate a clear connection between your teaching choices and the background information which is provided, such as class composition, previous learning experiences, etc. It's expected that this justification is supported by appropriate academic readings, as always. So the relevant learning outcomes for this task, we're assessing your ability to demonstrate that you meet the criteria for the following unit learning outcomes: develop engaging science lesson plans and unit outlines that adhere to inclusive safe practice. So this is a lesson plan, so not a unit outline, but we want you to include safe practice in here as always too. And the next related outcome is critically engage and consider a range of teaching strategies and how they can be applied to a range of science concepts and knowledge across foundation to grade 6 age range. Let's click on the assignment details. Go back up. So again, 2,000 words for the whole 2 lessons. And let's have a look. So the assignment details, you're provided with a choice of 4 templates you can see here. And I'll have a quick look at each of them really quick, and then I'll go back into one of them in a little more detail. So you click on them, they download to your computer. So template 1, as you can see here, is chemical science, is the main area that you're looking at, main part of the science curricula. So you're given a background in each of the lessons, and it's expected that this background information is reflected in your lesson plan. This one, the school context, it's a small regional school of less than 200 students. Most students have limited access to reliable internet at home, so you need to consider this in your planning. The school has just installed interactive whiteboards and is trialling a one-to-one iPad program. So you've got a bit of an idea about the school background, the whole school. Then you've got your specific class information. So in this case, it's a year 1, 32 students, which is a large class. Many of the students in the class respond well to kinesthetic activities, which is, hands-on or physical activities, movement. 25% of this class are currently receiving additional academic support for literacy and numeracy, so they're not strong with these areas. So in your planning, you would need to consider that. Now, just keep in mind, that does not mean, that there is an integration aid available. So I would not be planning that you do have that kind of support. I would be planning in such a way that a single teacher is able to cater for the whole class in this context. So you'll need to consider, how much writing you would actually be doing in your activity. A good science activity, you do not necessarily have to have a lot of writing or anything like that, or maybe you could use mixed ability groups or something like that. And also this group, most of the students are not confident using digital technology. So all those things need to be considered when you're making your plan. So this plan, you have to cover this curriculum content. You can't change the content descriptors. So the science understanding one is everyday materials can be physically changed in a variety of ways. And you can click on the content descriptor for more information. And when you get into the Australian curriculum, you can also look at the elaborations for some extra ideas. And that'll take you to Scootle as well. Science is human endeavour, so you have to incorporate this into your plan too. Science involves asking questions about and describing changes in objects and events. Again, you can click on the content descriptor here. Science inquiry skills. So all 3 of these need to be considered in your plan. Use informal measurements in the collection and recording of observations with the assistance of digital technologies as appropriate. So you do have to have a little bit of a digital technology component in here. It's not the crux of the lesson, but it definitely needs to be visible to us as ELAs when we're marking it, that you've considered that. And also you've got to consider that in relation to the class context, which they're not confident in using digital technologies. So consequently, you can't expect that they know how to use it. So it would be fairly simple, particularly for a year 1 student. They could be taking photos to use to record information and collect information, maybe do some analysing, even things like explain everything. They can record their understandings and you could display them on one of these wonderful whiteboards that the school has just installed. So this lesson, you do have to come up with one link yourself. It has to have a technology link, which I would make sure it was a digital technology link because that's what it says here, that relates to the area that you're covering for that. So you have to go into the Australian curriculum, click on digital technologies, and it would have to be a relevant one for the grade 1 students. I'll talk about a little more in a minute about how to fill out the template. So template 2, you only choose 2 of these, whichever 2 appeal to you the most. I'll be a little quicker with this one. So this one's a year 2 physical science. And so the school context is here, and it talks about the priorities that it has in science and arts. So you would certainly take that into consideration. It has a formalised partnership with the local high school. Then you can think about that using the high school students as mentors in your science lesson. That's a really nice one to think about, peer learning, which is great. So this is year 2, 25 students, which is a pretty good class size. I wish mine was that small. And you've got your science content descriptors here. And again, this one you have to choose a design and technology curriculum link. And you have to include it just under here. We have to see this. It's really important for the pass criteria that you have considered this and included it. And if you go down there, that's where you fill in your lesson plan. I'll get out of this, go to the next one quickly. template 3. All right, this is a Year 5 biological sciences, so that's your focus if you choose this lesson. So this is a high achieving school as reflected in the recent NAPLAN results. It's a school which has above average socioeconomic index, so high achieving from parents of a more resourced background, higher expectations. 65% of the student population are considered to be within the higher socioeconomic banding. So you have to think about that when you're planning. All students have access to iPads and are confident digital learners. So it's different from the other ones. And it's multicultural, fairly balanced gender mix. So all of these things you have to consider. Respond well to visual material. 2 students have allergies to animals. And then you look at your science content descriptors and you need to work out a really engaging, and I really want to reiterate that it's engaging. Don't just do a boring sort of pencil and paper copying from the board activity. This is your chance to do something really interesting and plan something that you could utilise, a realistic plan for the students in this group. Now this one you have to include a science inquiry skill, and so you select one skill that you will address in the lesson and you include it below. You have to put it there as these ones are, so the whole content descriptor with the code, and you also have to include a digital technology link that you will be addressing. Now just remember that digital and design technology links that you include are not the crux of the lesson, but you must address them and they must be included in some way. But the science, biological sciences in this case, is the focus of your lesson in relation to the class context. I'll click on the last one, template 4. So this is a Year 6 Earth and Space Sciences. This one's a really interesting one too. It's a well-resourced inner suburban school with an active parent community, so you need to consider that. Parental and community involvement is highly encouraged. The school has interactive whiteboards in every classroom and it backs onto a large nature reserve. I find that is a good key component to consider in your plans. So it's a very small class, so you have lots of possibilities of what you can do with that size class. One of the students has a mother who is a geologist and has agreed to contribute within the science lessons. So if you read through all of this, you've got your science content descriptors again, and this one must include a link to science inquiry skill that is relevant for that age group, and a digital or design technology link. You choose which one suits your plan the best. Now, thinking about science inquiry skills, I encourage you to click on the Australian curriculum, go into science, and then I've got all of the year levels up here. So you'll see Foundation, Year 1, Year 2, and so on. So I'll just have a quick look at the Year 1. So it's got a Year 1 level description. And if you scroll down, you've got your science understanding. We've got the links there for you. When you're looking, and you don't have to do this for the grade 1 plan, but if you look at the science inquiry skills here, this is where you'll get your content descriptors to choose. So you've got questioning and predicting, planning and conducting, processing and analysing data and information. One of them, in whatever lesson plan you choose, if you need to do it, will be what you choose and what is the most relevant. And they're often very complementary and not hard to incorporate. It just takes a little more consideration. Now, also down here you've got your additional resources. There's a referencing guide on how to reference and cite the Australian curriculum. And in here is assignment support. It'll take you to the student portal. I'll have a quick click on it if it doesn't take too long to load up. Go into study resources. It's loading. My internet's very slow today. And go down to lesson plans and observations. Now these do look a little different than our plan for this assignment, but you'll get some really good ideas, and you'll get good ideas about the type of language you will use in your lesson plans and how to set it out clearly and succinctly. So as you can see, dot points are the preferred choice for many of the areas. Where you go into your justification, and this one doesn't have a justification, but it will still give you some really good ideas to have a look at. So do have a look at the lesson plans, and the study resources are always really good. And of course, post onto your discussion boards. Oh no, I've clicked right out of it. Whoops, sorry. Now I've got my screencast-o-matic up. No, I've got letters up. You really